it's really common for us to label people based on what we know. We might be like, okay, they used to do this like 3 years ago. How is it possible they changed? Why are they acting so nice now? Like, why are they acting so nice?
Don't hang your head when you get lonely.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about gossip and the difference between gossip and venting. Because oftentimes, right, even after I became a Christian, I feel like God was really convicting me in like a lot of different areas of like my life, how I speak, what I speak. And it took a while for me to really understand, okay, is this gossip? Is this venting? What does God's word say about it? So I think it's a really like nice topic, especially for people who might be asking the same questions that, you know, like we did as well when we first like had an encounter with God.
Because I think sometimes we get confused between the two as well. But there is like quite a difference on venting and gossiping. And so let's dive into that.
Okay. So to start off with, I have the definition for gossip. So gossip, according to Google, is casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed to be true. So it says typically details that aren't true, but it doesn't say it's only details that aren't true. So I feel like gossip also encompasses things that we probably shouldn't speak about other people, that may be something someone told you in confidence, and then going and telling that to someone else, that also would be considered gossip because you're talking behind that person, right? Whereas venting, literally the translation was give free expression to a strong emotion. So two very different things. And it's quite interesting because the Bible constantly talks about how when someone gossips, it always leads to downfall. Like all of Proverbs, it's just, if you gossip, this happens. If you gossip, that happens. It just warns you constantly. But I think the real problem is, it's hard sometimes when you're having a conversation to identify, is it gossip or is it not? Yeah.
Is it like a normal conversation?
Yeah.
Or that's I think identifying that is also a key thing that we need to understand. And we only understand that when we're able to see and recognize the fruits of the Holy Spirit. Not within the person, but sometimes in the moment, in what they're saying. And in what they say, it's not them. So you shouldn't be blaming the person saying, "Oh, they gossip a lot. I can't talk to them," because it's not them that's speaking. Okay, it's the enemy that's trying to get you to gossip as well in order to spread false information about that person.
And it's because it's so normalized within culture as well. You have like gossip magazines, like gossip articles that are getting released, and because it's so normalized, we don't think of it as something that we shouldn't be doing. And you don't realize it until you get that conviction. Because that's what happened to me actually. So obviously when I first I became Christian, I was kind of doing my own thing, but then it got to a point where I realized I was in a friendship where all we were doing was just gossiping. And the moment it kind of, like the moment I realized that what I was doing was wrong was when I almost faced, how do I phrase it? Was when it kind of backfired. There we go. So I had told the same friend something in confidence about myself, and literally like a week later, I was on call with someone else, and the other person was asking me about the thing that I told the friend. And in the moment, I was just like smiling. I was like, yeah. And it was very private. And I was like, yeah. After I kind of like realized that they had went and spoken behind my back, it just kind of, like really tore me to pieces. And then I had to really evaluate, what is it that I'm speaking to this person about? What is our kind of conversation actually holding? And I realized we were just gossiping. We were always just talking about other people, And I asked that friend, I said, how come you went and spoke to that person? And they did apologize. But I think in that moment, God really convicted me. It was like almost like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit awakening. Yeah.
That's when we actually realize and learn, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, okay, the gossiping is a serious thing
Yeah.
that is actually, especially amongst like on social media, it's really like romanticized, like, oh, gossip and
Yeah,
tea
what's the gossip?
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, or what's the tea today? Like, you know, it's really
Yeah.
like seen as a positive thing nowadays.
Yeah.
But in fact, we don't understand it until we get that slap on the face and we're like, oh my gosh, this backfired.
And when it happens to you as well. It's so sad as well, though. All those gossip magazines probably reporting false things about celebrities, and their lives must be so their lives must be impacted.
Everything I feel like is like
Yeah.
for the purpose of making money.
Exactly.
And they're using your entertainment, your free time, you having time to gossip in order to make money off of that.
Yeah. I don't know, like, have you ever felt this thing where, like, obviously BC, so before Christ. So BC, I was like engaging in conversations, and I felt that gossip kind of formed like a layer to a relationship where I felt that because we were able to gossip, at that time I didn't think it was wrong. I just thought it was just normal, right? Because we were gossiping, it felt like, oh, our relationship was really strong because we're able to talk about everything. But our relationships shouldn't be based on gossip. That's not the foundation. Jesus is the foundation.
Exactly. And I feel like it's really normalized for us because we've both grown up in an Asian community.
Yeah.
And like it's so common, like, you know, like our parents or aunties or someone saying, oh, avalke in the market ticket, or like, oh, suna kya usne kiya? Oh my gosh, tune suna? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, and then you get encouraged to gossip as well because that's the first thing you kind of talk about. And you think it's like a normal, exciting thing to build bond with someone, like gossiping. But
it's
only
not.
when you stop and you understand, like God shows you how bad it actually is, how much it can actually impact another person. Because it does come round in a circle and they do find out.
Exactly.
And
And I'm so glad that God revealed this to me sooner than later.
Yeah.
Because imagine when you are like maybe even like when you're older or you have more exposure to, you have a platform or whatever it is, and you are literally caught in the middle of that gossip. It's so tragic because not only is it affecting you, it's affecting lots of the people that share the platform with you as well. So it's really, God really warns us. So I actually want to go back to the scripture.
Yeah.
So it says in Proverbs 11:13, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. It's actually just about keeping our mouth shut.
Yeah.
I feel like literally as simple as that.
You know, when you say that, it reminds me of how people say, if you don't have something nice to say about that person, keep your mouth shut. Don't say it.
Exactly.
Don't talk. Like, there is no need.
And what you said as well, like, I also read somewhere that, so imagine you're talking about someone and that person's right here. If you're not able to say whatever you wanted to say in front of that person, then you shouldn't say it. So that's how I judge nowadays. Obviously the conviction as well. But now, even before I open my mouth, I'm like, okay, if that person's there, would it still be okay for me to say this? If this person was here, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, how do I?
Like, would you be able to say it to their face?
Yeah. If they were part of that conversation, can I still say what I'm going to say about that person? And that's how I feel. I feel like that's a good like benchmark to judge. Okay, is this appropriate? But I think there's also a difference with venting. With venting, I feel like it's more to do with yourself and how you feel. So imagine if you, I don't know, for example, you went through a breakup or something happened and you're really hurting and you have to speak to someone and you call up your friend and you're like, okay, I feel this way, I feel terrible, this and this happened. There's a difference in saying that versus, oh, do you know what he did? He's such a horrible person. You know, you're not like slandering their name.
Yeah, not using their name. It's just the situation and getting out of that situation.
Exactly.
So you're just sharing the lessons that you've learned and you're expressing your emotion without bringing that person down.
Exactly.
Okay? So,
and I think it makes a difference as well because then the person listening can also be like, oh, how can I support you? instead of, because I feel like when someone also talks bad about another person, you're there in the middle, like what do I say to that? Do I just give them a blank stare? Do I agree with them? Do I call them out and be like, no, you shouldn't be doing this?
Especially when you don't know that person and someone's saying things like this to you, it changes your whole first image of them without you even meeting them.
Exactly.
You know, you just assume that they're going to be like that. But then when you actually get to know them, they're like so nice, and you're like, you just don't understand. Like, it's all about a matter of perception.
It's so true. And it can literally destroy relationships. It can betray relationships, and it's just like a nasty door to open. So it's just better to just
yeah. So before we like condemn the sin of gossiping or saying, okay, gossiping is bad, we need to understand why people gossip and what area of hurt does it actually come from. Because then we're able to pray for healing in that area for that person. Okay, so often I feel like when people gossip, it's always coming from trauma, like not getting enough validation, or they lack attention or self-confidence, and so you have to talk bad about someone, or even like a situation. Exactly. Even if it's not someone you know, even if it's just celebrities, you have to like talk about something in order for people to understand, like you to get validation on either your knowledge or like she knows so much about this person, or like then you keep going to that person for information.
Wow. That's so true. That's low-key convicting me as well, because the amount of times I've been like, oh yeah, that film is so bad, or I'm like, oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, blah, blah, blah. But I don't actually think the effect of that, because in order to even make a film, the amount of effort that goes into it is so much that we can almost like bring it down in a second with our words. And it's so sad, isn't it? I don't know if that's more criticism or gossip, but still, we have to still like look at everything with a lens of, a love. And I think even going back to what you said about why are we gossiping, there's always that phrase of, you pick up the phone and you're like, hey, I really need to get this off my chest. You won't believe what happened. I think we really have to ask ourselves before we even pick up the phone, like, do I really need to get that off my chest? Is it something I really need to be sharing? And I feel like friendships that are also based on that gossip, thriving on that gossip, can also be very short term and very short lived as well. And that's what I've experienced. So I think I've also been in situations where I felt that I had to engage in the gossip in order to maintain a relationship, or kind of you're in a social setting where someone's talking about someone, just sitting there, you're not calling them out, you're just sitting there listening kind of thing, to kind of feel like you belong there. And I feel that gossip also does that. But when you truly place your identity in God, you know that you don't need anyone else to validate your identity. There's actually a verse in Proverbs 11 which made me realize that gossip is actually a heart problem. So in Proverbs 11:22 it says, "A beautiful woman who lacks discretion is like a gold ring in a pig's snout." A definition of discretion is also that you kind of avoid revealing confidential information. So that also means you're also not gossiping. It's like a roundabout way. Okay. But basically, the definition also, it basically means that you try and avoid speaking in a way to avoid offense, and also avoid revealing confidential information. And what does revealing confidential information mean? It just means you either you're gossiping or you accidentally said it, right? So then I relayed it back to this. So it says a beautiful woman. So I put, instead of discretion, I was thinking, okay, a beautiful woman who gossips is like a gold ring in a pig's snout. So it doesn't matter how beautiful we are in the outside, the outward appearance, but it's actually a heart problem. No matter how we dress, how we look, if we still walk around gossiping, talking bad about other people, not being able to keep a secret that someone has entrusted us with, then we are basically like a gold ring in a pig snout with no value. It's in like, it's amongst all the, it's a pig snout is like dirty, right?
It's literally, I always think there's lots of prophecies, right? So they all share prophecies of or visions they're having of certain people, and when they share it, I'm always thinking, oh God, don't tell this person the secret I told you, God. Oh no, what if they know this? I always used to think, oh my God, what if they know this? What if they know that? No, God, don't tell them everything. Only tell them this bit. But God keeps his secrets to himself. The things I tell God only, he keeps it. He doesn't go tell another prophet, oh, this is the prophecy about Elrea, like announce that in front of the whole church. Oh yeah, this one's for you, Elrea. This is the prophecy the Lord told me. It's only like good things and things that no one knows yet. Because it's certain things that I'm not able to say like yet. I'm like, God, please wait. Don't leak the news.
That's so good as well. God is like so discreet.
God doesn't leak our secrets. Then why should we leak others people's? If someone trusts us when they're saying something to us, we need to be how God is like to us. Like when we tell God something, he doesn't go and tell everyone else, because he can do that. He can tell everyone, show them in their dreams or prophecies or anything, but he doesn't do that. So we need to be the same. When we learn how, like when I vent to him, like when I vent to the Lord, like the way he handles it and the way he doesn't share it and he comforts us is how we should also share his love to others.
What he said as well is so appropriate, because David basically vents to God all of Psalms, right? But that's considered worship, not gossip, worship.
Because he's just talking.
He's talking. He's venting to God. He's speaking his heart out to God. He's crying out to God, and that was a form of worship. So I think if we kind of like realign ourselves to look at the difference between gossip versus venting, it really positions ourselves in like a way where we're able to heal from a situation rather than going around in circles, because that's what gossip does, because you're not solving anything, you just talk about it. Whereas when you vent to God, when you speak it out to God, when you go to God and you pray for it, or if you pray with someone else, what it does, it begins a journey of healing or something you want to recover from as well. So it's really important we take our burdens to God as well.
Another thing I always find so funny, basically, there's this auntie, and like whenever someone's going to say something to her, she's like, you're going to say something about someone, don't tell me because I forget that it's a secret, and I literally I can't hold it in me. Please don't tell me if you're going to say something about someone.
What a way to that's so good, because it's like, how do you react when someone is gossiping to you as a Christian? Like, what would we even do? Like, I've been in situations where I've kind of said I've stayed silent. I've given them a blank stare, or I said to them, I don't really want to gossip. And that did not go very well. But God is teaching me to be better with my words. But I think the enemy was really tries to condemn you when you don't involve in gossip, and I think it's important that we do actually, like, if someone is gossiping to you all the time and you're kind of fed up of it, it's important that you rebuke and you also correct, as long as they're also willing to hear and listen, because iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. But if they're not willing to listen, then don't waste your time. So I think it's important that we as Christians, as ambassadors of the kingdom of God, we need to hold ourselves to like a very high level of accountability when it comes to things like this as well, because our destinies are actually very much linked to this. Because a gossip, imagine you're in a room and you are literally about to meet a destiny helper who's going to take you from this stage of your life to the next stage of your life, and they see you engaging in gossip subconsciously, or they see you everyone around you is gossiping, and you don't step up and speak about what's right. It's gonna it's going to affect your life. It's going to affect your destiny, because we don't know who's sitting next to us, who's listening to us. Even on the train, we don't know who's listening to us on the train. So it's important that we're very aware and we're very careful with our tongue. And I think over time, the less you gossip, the less you want to gossip.
Because it's really a void. It's from a void, right? You want to gossip because you want something to talk about, and it actually satisfies that short-term happiness. You know, you get that thrill out of gossiping. Oh, what's the tea today? Oh, like, you know. But when you're in just your boring time with God, and no gossiping, nothing, and that time of fasting and stuff, and fasting and prayer, you really understand, oh my gosh, this is nothing I needed. You know, this, and then it starts to annoy you instead of bringing you that thrill.
Exactly. It annoys you. Like, you can't be in the conversation any longer. You just have to like I've been in situations where I've just kind of like, I'm fed up of hearing the same thing. I just have to be like, okay, I'm sorry, I have to go. Because I genuinely like I can't hear it anymore. It's very disturbing. Obviously, like we talked about before, it can stem from trauma, from hurt, from lots of other things. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's not a nice feeling. You don't like leave. I feel like, especially once God starts convicting you, I've always felt that I've had a conversation where I've engaged in gossip, and as soon as I put the conversation, like, phone down, I'm a bit like, I don't.
You know what? When you said that, I feel like instead of condemning the other person, we need to figure out. We need to help them to understand. Like, okay, why are you saying this? Like, you know, what joy are you getting out of saying this? What area of pain is this coming from? You know, helping them to be more self-aware of which area, which area of your life, what happened, and what area you need to pray about, so then you don't keep getting that void and you have to keep filling it with gossip. So helping them to understand which areas of their life need healing, okay? And instead of saying, okay, like, you know, I don't want to gossip and cutting them off, I think it brings pain to them, like, because in the moment you're like, oh, someone needs to be here to listen to me, and we need to turn the conversation around, help them to understand which area they need healing in, okay, to be more aware of which areas you both can pray together for that person.
Exactly. I agree completely. You know, you have to make sure that you respond with love as well. Conviction, not condemnation. However, that being said, it's also important to also not condemn yourself, because the other person has to be willing. If they're not willing to listen, then of course it's, you know, they're not going to be happy about it. And also, I think what you said as well, there's also like a sweetness to the rebuke. You know, when God rebukes, when God's rebuked me in the past before, sometimes it's been very gentle. Sometimes it's been like, so, you know, Jesus, he's a lion and a lamb. You know, there's two sides of him, in that sense. So just like that, it's all depending on the situation, right? For example, you know, if you're constantly doing it again and again, there's only a certain amount of times I can tell you, you know, I'm like, Elrea, please, I can't. And if you keep doing it again, I have to be like, Elrea, please. My dad does, like, my dad says this to me, right? So I think it's all, you know, depending on the situation, but also, again, it all has to be out of love. And God is still, like, you know, teaching all of us every day on how to even respond.
Because even we have to say what we need to say, like, you know, we don't need to keep quiet and to be a people pleaser.
Exactly.
And when we do say, we cannot say with the expectation that this person will change or this person will stop gossiping, because, okay, you said what you need to say, that's up to them if they want to change or not, and that's up to them if God, you know, that's up to God for him to help them change it. But we can't expect them to change in the moment at the present time, because something you've said now might only come to an understanding like 10 years from now.
Exactly.
So, like, things like I've heard, like, priests talk, like priest sermons and like talks and stuff in year 9, and I didn't understand anything. But like a good like 5-7 years later, suddenly it makes sense. You know, so it's really about saying what you need to say. You know, speaking the truth with love.
Exactly.
With love, but Also, not having that
Yeah.
expectation or burden on them to expect them to, suddenly understand it. Because how we didn't
Exactly.
understand it when we are like, we were told certain things. My dad's
Exactly.
been telling me for like 15, 20 years to wake up at 5 a.m. because it's so good for you and to sleep before 10. But I only started understanding this year after a
Yeah.
good like 20 years of living.
Exactly.
So yeah, we cannot expect that. So
No,
yeah.
I agree. So one thing I really want us to also talk about is how, okay, just because someone's gossiped in the past doesn't mean that they can't change or they're a different person.
Yeah.
So, like for me, I can talk from my experience, right? I'm sure in this world, everyone has gossiped. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe it if someone said, no, I've never gossiped before. Like, we've all done that.
Yeah.
We've all sinned, we've all gossiped. And it's about how you rise from that and how you change. So, me now is very different to me who engaged in gossip. So I think it's important that we also don't condemn other people. So if they're telling us, okay, I no longer want to gossip, then yeah, okay, great. Like, like God doesn't call you by your sin, he calls you by your name. Just like that, we should also acknowledge that. And that's why, we have to forgive one another. We have to move forward. We can't keep holding on to the past as well. Even though we know it's wrong, God forgave us. God forgave me. He convicted me. He helped me change. So we can't be going around condemning other people. I'm not saying, oh, I'm here all being all righteous, because we're not.
Yeah.
I need God. Without God, I'm still like, I'll be so hopeless.
Yeah.
And we make mistakes every day because we are human beings. So understanding that and coming from that perspective also helps you kind of approach situations with more love as well.
It's really common for us to label people based on what we know from past. We might be like, okay, they used to do this like 3 years ago. How is it possible they changed? Why are they acting so nice now? Like, why are they acting so nice? They're not acting. Maybe they actually are nice.
And we're not able to accept it.
Exactly.
Because we've labeled that in our heads.
Yeah.
Obviously, like if someone we know is someone who's gossiping, we obviously feel a lack of trust, that we're not able to trust them with certain things, and that's okay. But now if they're changed and God is calling you to have a closer friendship with them, and God is like, no, they're meant to be your friend, trust them, speak to them, that's very different. So I think we also have to let go of things that we are holding on to, because we also can kind of sometimes idolize this whole idea of, oh yeah, I'm righteous, I know what I'm doing, I no longer gossip, I no longer do this. But it's actually a very dangerous game to do, like to even think like that, because you don't know when the flesh is the flesh. We need to crucify it, we need to surrender it to God every day. It's not like, oh, I surrendered it, move on, it's done. We have to do it every day. So just like that, we have to try and not gossip every day. We have to, it might be like, okay, you really want to talk about what happened, what you saw right there, or, something's just happened, you found out that, I don't know, someone's getting married or something like that, but you got to it's okay, you got to keep quiet, because it's not your place to say, and if you don't know the facts fully, like it's not right for you to say, because that means you're just passing on false information.
And no matter, we think we know everything just by something we say, and we base off the whole story thinking we know everything, but we really don't.
I've been there. I've been there, and I thought I knew it, but boy, was I wrong. I was wrong about so many things. So it is important as well. So going back to Proverbs 11:11, it says, uptight citizens are good for a city and make it prosper, but the talk of the wicked tears it apart. So I actually just want to kind of put into perspective that gossip is not just slandering your neighbors, but it also applies to nations, people in power, like actual nations, countries, because it literally says in the Bible that upright citizens are good for a city. A city. It's talking about a city here. And then it says, for the talk of the wicked tears it apart. So it's still referring to the city. So the talk of the wicked, so in this case, we can presume it to be gossip, can tear apart cities. And that's so, that's actually so deep. Because the way that we even talk about our nation, the way that we talk about other nations, like spreading false information, can actually be so detrimental. And I don't think, like, I know that I'm kind of like, we're so used to seeing the news and being like, this has happened, that has happened. But we don't actually know. We don't actually know what's been going on. So sometimes the best thing to do is to just pray about whatever a country's facing, what they're going through, rather than trying to even just pick sides.
Exactly.
Because we don't know what's happening. We've got to pray for both sides, right?
Yeah.
They both countries have people, both countries have lives. So it's important that we put both of them in prayer. And I think sometimes taking sides can also be a result of all these false information spreading. We don't know the root of it. So it can be really detrimental as well. And it can affect like foreign affairs, it can affect foreign relationships as well. For example, like we may not be trading with a certain country anymore because of false rumors that went around, which means that we don't have access to a particular resource anymore. So who is it causing the downfall? So that's actually causing the downfall of the people within the nation itself. So it's really important that we also realize that gossip is not just a friendly friendship neighbor thing. It's not just affecting people around us, it can affect a whole nation. And the Bible, I didn't actually pick up on that when I first read it. But like reading a bit deeper made me realize the Bible's kind of deep because it's really highlighting the effects of gossip.
On a greater level,
And it literally says the talk of the wicked tears it apart, causes divide within nations as well. Like when you tear something apart, you're separating it, right? So again, it's that idea of taking sides, dividing nations. But God doesn't want that. God is always calling for unity. He's a God of restoration. He wants peace. Whereas the things that the enemy is slowly, like the agenda of the enemy is to tear things down. So gossip is almost like a gateway, like a door. We open it, it leads to lots of other things as well.
One of the key things I feel like about gossip is the more we gossip, especially about people or situations that we don't even know about, and we're getting these information from other people. When we get all this information from other people, and when they actually do change, and they become born again, and they're refreshed again, in new spirits, you literally cannot accept when they are being nice to you, and when they are trying to do good things, our hearts are just closed, and it just becomes so hardened that we cannot
Receive that
love
that they're
exactly.
showing us.
And it's actually I've heard it so many times, like, it's really weird when I've heard it so many times, like when people say, oh, it's so weird that that person from school, they've started becoming so nice again. Like, it's, but we have to come from that place of understanding that we are also the same, like we were also there, so what?
God says we are a new creation in him, a new creation. The old is gone. So that means we all have the ability to be that new creation. And like you said, instead of like seeing someone for who they were in the past, we should even look at someone and say, okay, like I want to see the identity. This is okay. I love this topic, right? Because the friends that call out the identity that God placed in you, those kind of friendships are so special. Because they see the woman of God that you are before you sometimes see it yourself. They're like, no, Sanjana, you're like this, you're like that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't see it. But they're like, no, like this is who God called you to be. And having those kind of people around you really changes your whole lifeline. It changes your whole destiny. It changes the way that your path. Because the last thing you want is people picking up on your past and bringing that back into, bringing that back again and again. Because it's not nice. It's not a nice feeling. And, like I said, I'm still learning. God is still teaching me, and I'm still in that process of, I'm still getting like learning every day. And I think it's important that we just always stay vigilant to what God is telling us as well. Yeah. And above all else, just keep my mouth shut. If we don't have anything good to say, like you said, we just don't say it.
Exactly. Yeah. Best to keep quiet. And, we always think, I'm just getting so carried away today. But anyway, so we always think, oh my gosh, why are you being so quiet, Elrea? Why don't you speak up about this? You're so shy. Don't be quiet about this situation. Sometimes there is a power in being quiet and not saying anything. And I feel like we just don't acknowledge that these days. We just think that when you speak up, you're always right. Or when you speak up, like they're brave and confident. But no, when you're speaking with certainty, yes. And when you're speaking with what the Lord wants us to address, yes. But there is also it's equally important to be quiet in the right moments. Because when you are quiet, the person opposite you gets annoyed because they can't trigger you. They can't get you to react the way they want you to react. And it's not that person's fault. It's the enemy that's trying to get you to react through that person. So there's no need to get offended, because we just have to understand it's not them, it's the enemy.
It's the enemy. It's planting the seeds, right? Instead of it's the enemy. We have, like we said before, it's not us against human beings. Human beings aren't our enemies. It's the principalities, exactly. The powers that the enemy is using. But like you said, there's so much spoken in a silence. I don't think that a silence is just a silence. I feel like a silence speaks a lot. Yeah, definitely. I don't know. Have you seen those Bollywood films where they fall in love and it's just so like I love the way they portray it. They just look at each other and they're not saying anything, but there's so much spoken within that silence. A love is shown within that silence. Yeah, even through actions.
The first thing I thought was Mr. Bean, because he doesn't speak a word, but it's so funny.
Yeah,
not a single word. Yes. And it's the most funniest thing I've ever seen. Exactly. That is the power of like action over words.
Mr. Bean's great. Yeah. No, exactly. So there's a beautiful thing about silence, and I really want to. Because I'm someone who I'm very chatty, you know me, right? I'm really chatty. I think once I get to know someone, I'm really chatty. Yeah. I'm shy. I'm quite shy initially, but once I get to know someone, I'm so chatty. So I'm really going through this season of just God, let me be silent. I just want to listen. Let me listen. Still really hard, but I just have to remember that there's actually because you learn so much in the silence as well.
Yeah, you do. You observe so much when you're quiet. I literally feel like the eyes are the tunnel. No, was it
gateway to the soul?
Yeah, literally, eyes are like the gateway to the soul. When you're talking to someone, eye contact is so important, because when you just look into someone's eye, you know if it's God speaking through or if it's the enemy. And it's not like a certain person, it's like the enemy speaking a certain. No, it's different on each day. Sometimes when I look into someone's eyes, I can tell this is the enemy trying to speak through them. You can literally see the whole emotion through their eyes.
Exactly. You can. You can see the joy in someone's eyes. You can also see, I've had situations where someone's spoken a very negative way to me, and like you said, it's not them it's speaking. It's it's also the enemy trying to kind of trigger me through them.
Exactly. So it's so obvious.
It's that discernment, having that discernment to know, okay, maybe I should just keep quiet and not react. Exactly. If I react, it's going to explode. Okay, so it also says in Proverbs 26:20, without a wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down.
Yeah.
So literally, without gossiping, it's you can literally avoid quarrels as well.
Can bring peace. supposed to stay quiet.
Yeah.
And you know how I said, how we were saying like eyes are the gateway, and you can understand people's emotions, or if it's the enemy trying to attack you, or if the enemy is speaking through them, you can see it all through the eyes. But right now, these days, we often judge people based on how they text. Okay, like you know, just by a message, we're like, oh, because they're so moody, they don't want to talk to me. Oh, they're doing this. They didn't even send an emoji. Like, you know, they don't want to talk to me. They're annoyed. We assume so much just through a text, and like
it's really really hurtful, isn't it? The way that technology has kind of evolved to do that. Because I got told off by someone because I hearted all the messages.
No.
Right, on WhatsApp, I hearted all the messages, and I got told off like, "Are you not reading my messages? Why are you just hearting everything?" And I was like, "But that's just my way of speaking. I just like to heart." And I got so sad, and I was like, but I think that also taught me there's different people appreciate different forms of communication.
Perceive it all differently.
And obviously, like for example, you know, if I send you something on Instagram, you see it and you like double heart it, right, to acknowledge. So just like that on WhatsApp, you heart it. So it's become something, and I feel like different generations probably are facing different ways of communication as well. Because a heart could mean something else for someone. Heart could mean. So I think, like you said, exactly. The way someone texts is not a definition of what they're trying to convey. Yeah. Because a text is not it doesn't convey anything. Of course, you have emojis and you have stickers with your face on it, all of that, but you're not speaking to that person. Yeah. Actually, like, you know, face to face.
Like, you truly understand someone, you truly understand who's speaking, the spirit as well, by looking into their eyes and talking.
Exactly. And when we judge by the way they message, it can be really hurtful.
Exactly.
For our,
And even, it's the same with news, right? When we're reading news and something is in speech marks, we just assume it was said in a way that it sounds in our head. Without actually knowing even what the whole thing they said was. It's only a bit of the speech mark, and we assume that voice and how it was probably said in our head without actually thinking what actually happened, you know, without knowing the full story. So it's not just messages, it's actually a lot of things that we don't know the full story of. And it's good we don't know the full story. God didn't make us all-knowing for a reason, otherwise it would be so much on our shoulders.
Exactly.
Only He's all-knowing. Nobody else is all-knowing. We can't expect, you know, any news channel to be all-knowing. Oh, I'm not biased, I'm going to follow this news channel. Because no.
So to kind of conclude our episode on gossip, I would say talking about this has also helped me kind of understand even more is the power of silence and just keeping quiet. It's better to just not say something if you don't have anything good to say. And it's not just a biblical principle. I feel like, you know, it's also something that we've been taught growing up. Like, you're not going to say something mean to someone's face, right?
And if
it's
you
morality.
Exactly. And if you need to vent out something, take it to the Lord, because that's considered worship. Like, you're praying, like you're talking to God. Yeah.
But if you're taking it to someone else, first of all, you don't know how that person's going to react. Secondly, there's only so much that person can handle.
Yeah, so much weight.
And thirdly, if they don't react the way that you want them to react, if they don't agree with you, then it's going to hurt you.
Exactly.
So God is just the best first source to go to always.